Hello everyone and welcome to the penultimate round of the Superbet Chess Classic Romania. It is Wesley versus Praggnanandhaa. Prague is one of the leaders and Wesley trailing by half a point, so it is one definitely important for the standings before going into the final round. Both of them would very much love to win the tournament, but you know, if not, have the best results as possible. So it's a pretty wild game. It's sort of a rare line of the Benko. Well, I don't think we've had it on the channel. Pretty sure we didn't have it, so you know, for those of you who love the Benko gambit, you will enjoy this one. Wesley with white opens with pawn to d4. We have knight to f6, pawn to c4, and pawn to c5. The Benoni defense is on the board. We have d5 advancing the pawn, and now pawn to b5, the Benko gambit. We have c captures on b5 and a6, where the standard idea is b captures on a6, but you can play other moves. And, you know, more and more popular, I think b6 is becoming, especially in faster time controls. But here we have pawn to e3, inviting Prague to capture on b5, which he does. A captures, we have bishop captures on b5 and queen to a5 with check. Here Wesley blunders the bishop. That, of course, is a joke, as there is knight to c3. We have bishop to b7 and the bishop to d2. Not preparing some nasty discoveries, however, not while the bishop is on b5. So queen to b6. Getting out of the bishop's way, plus also the b2 pawn has been weakened with the removal of the bishop from c1. We have knight to f3, and now knight captures on d5. Okay, grabbing the central pawn, and it's, you know, usually when you play the Benko gambit, you are the one sacrificing pawns, but here it's a little bit different. Knight captures on d5 is you know, still the most played move in this position, but here we have pawn to a4, and after e6, pawn to e4. Look at this, knight captures on c3, bishop captures, and black even captures on e4. Bishop captures on e4, and there you have it. If you counter the material, black is up a pawn, which is, you know, very unlikely thing to happen in the Benko gambit unless you play this particular line. And there are a couple of games where castles was played. Here we have knight to e5, and it is now as of move 13 that we have a completely new game. And yes, black is up a pawn, but you have some problems here. There's the d7 pawn hanging. Of course, you cannot advance it, it's also pinned. You have to defend it. Queen to b7, defending the pawn and also putting extra pressure on that g2 pawn. Queen to h5, going after f7, and bishop to g6. Also, g6 is playable. No, not really sure why bishop to g6 was the move of choice, but you know, it's one of those moves that where you have to be a very, very strong player to play it. Even though the engine maybe does not prefer it, Prague maybe knows that, you know, against a human opponent, it will deal more damage. So okay, knight captures on g6. We have queen to e4 with check. And only after king to f1, because you could play bishop to e2, but you're still not going to be castling. Like bishop to e2, f captures on g6 attacks the queen, and now after the queen moves, you cannot keep defending the bishop, or you have to trade queens. But that's, you know, not really what you want to be doing. You're going to have to play something like queen h3, and you're still not going to be castling. It's still an equal position, but you know, not what Wesley wants for the price of that one pawn. So king to f1, this is how Wesley continues, you know, playing in great style. F captures on g6, we have queen to h3, and now queen to f5, offering to trade queens, and if Wesley decides to do so, then you will very nicely undouble your pawns. So queen g3, of course, he declines. He wants to attack the black king. Knight to c6, and while you could again capture, I mean, there's no shame in giving up the bishop like this to double black's pawns. Yes, black is still up a pawn, but now it's a double c pawn, so it's not as dangerous, and you get a nice pass a pawn. However, Wesley wants to keep the bishop pair, and he goes queen to c7 for the moment, at least. As now the threat is captures with check, and then you pick up the rook on a8. So here we have queen to d5, defending the knight one more time, and now we do have a trade. Bishop captures, pawn captures. Now Prague wants the queens on the board, as the king on f1 is, well, not all that impressive. Pawn to h4, and now bishop to e7. Finally, you can play it, and it seems like you're giving up the g7 pawn, but not really. That's the key idea of the queen d5 move, because if bishop captures on g7, you can play rook captures on a4, and if rook captures, queen to d1 is checkmate. So that's, you know, a problem. And even if you play something like rook d1, you can continue the game. Rook g8, the bishop will move back. You'll play something like rook g4, and no worry in the world. So after bishop to e7, rook to h3. This is, again, the best way to play. You get the rook into the game. Rook to f8, stopping a potential rook f3, and queen to e5. Now, it is Wesley who offers a queen trade, as Prag's position is starting to look very, very appealing. We have bishop to f6. Prag says, all right, we can trade, but on my terms. And now Wesley goes back. Trading, I mean, you just give black this massive center, and also black is up a pawn, so not really something to look forward to. So after bishop f6, queen back to e2, and now bishop to d4. Again, Prag forces Wesley to capture and to undouble his pawns. If you don't, well, f2 is hanging. How do you deal with that? You can play something like f3, but then rook f5, then you move the king, maybe f7, g8, you bring the other rook to f8, you maybe even have some pressure on f3, maybe e5, e4. So it's a whole lot of something where white really does not have any clear plan. So after bishop to d4, bishop captures on d4. You don't want to play it, but you have to play it. C captures, and now pawn to h5. We have rook to f6, and now king to g1. We have king to f7. H captures on g6, we have rook captures on g6, and now pawn to g3. And this is the move that, well, sort of cost, can cost you the game, and it has, but it's, hard to find a real idea here. The threat is queen captures and g2 checkmate. The rook f3 check. This is the move you have to play to prevent the rook from coming to f8. For example, king to g8. Now you play b4, you gain support for a5. And it's looking like something. But after rook captures on g6, pawn to g3 was played, and now you have to play it in perfect order if you are to win this game, and Prag of course does. And you have to really calculate this. I'm gonna show you a couple of lines just to show you what you had to find. So d3, okay, makes sense. We all understand d3, queen to d2, rook g4. We still understand this as well. The idea is rook to e4 and rook to e2, but even better, it's to stop rook e1, because you have so much pressure on this a4 pawn. You're just going to pick up the a4 pawn, and without the passed a4 pawn, white literally has zero counterplay. So pawn to a5 first, the queen will be nicely defending the pawn. Rook to e4, and now rook captures on h7. I cannot tell you the idea behind rook captures on h7 because it would ruin the pause the video moment. But just for fun, feel free to pause the video and try to find the only move that wins the game clean for Prag while I give you a couple of seconds. So there are a lot of nice moves. Pawn to c5, for example, rook to d8. Those are all nice moves. But the move that really, says, okay, it's time to go home, or rather, let's prepare for next round, is king to g8. This is the idea, because what Wesley's plan with king to h7 was, if Prag would continue with his plan of rook e2, queen c3, you go after the pawn, and then after e5, you will go queen b4. And again, it doesn't look like much, but after king to g8 now, let's say going after the rook, the threat was, of course, queen to b7 check. You're going to pick up the rook, and if king goes to g8, now you play queen to h4, and now you have all sorts of nasty threats. And white will have enough compensation for a draw, because if, for example, pawn to d2, you can even play rook captures on g7. It's that kind of a position. King captures, queen to g4 check, picks up the pawn, and you have full control over the d1 square. So that was the idea behind rook captures on h7, so you don't think that, it was just a pawn grab, in a very difficult position. No, it was extremely well calculated. But Prag calculates back, king to g8, as have you guys. We have rook to h4 offering a trade, and no, only now rook to e2. So Prag found a beautiful plan. The rook comes to e4, then to e2, but you had to find these couple of in-between moves to really make it happen. So queen to c3, pawn to d2, and now rook to d1. We have rook to f8, now again putting pressure on f2, rook to h2, and now queen to e4. We have rook to f1 and rook to f3, and okay, not much to be done here. The queen is hanging. We have queen to c5, and here rook to e1. And he was in this position on move 38 that Wesley so resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. For those of you who like it when I finish the game, queen d6 or something, because there's really not all that much to play, you're just going to start capturing. Captures, queen e1 check, king to g2, rook captures on f2 check, king h3, queen f1 check, king to g4, and now queen to e2 with check, king g5, rook to f5 with check, king g6, or h4, doesn't really matter. If you go here, then even rook h5 is a very nice checkmate. Or if you go up the board, king g6, it's always, you know, nicest to checkmate the opponent's king, you know, as far down or far up as possible. And this is something that, you know, it would very likely happen had the game continued after, you know, after rook to e1. So yeah, beautiful stuff by Pragg. I don't think I've seen this line. I don't think we've ever had a game where we've actually had this, you know, after a6. Big captures on a6, I think, you know, especially at this level and in the games that I've analyzed and seen, would be an automatic reply. But, you know, if you want to surprise Pragg, then e3 definitely, you know. But Pragg had it, you know, prepared. He didn't spend a second, you know, thinking about it. Of course, it's still main line. And yeah, beautifully done. And with this win in the penultimate round, Pragg takes sole lead. Look at this. Praggnanandhaa sole lead with 5 points. Then with 4.5, we have Fabi, MBL, and Alireza with 4 points. Bogdan, Daniel, Deak, Nodrbek, Abdusatorov with 3.5. Wesley, Levon, and Gukesh. And Yangshitov Duda in last place with 3 points. Gukesh also won a very nice game against Levon Aronian. We'll show that one as well. So stay tuned until I do. So that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank. Sorry about that. I would like to thank Random Pawn, Douglas van Benthuisen, Samuel Kamuli, Marcus Schub, and Nidhi Kumar for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And for those of you who are, you know, probably wondering, this is not, you know, a permanent setup. I'm traveling currently. I'm at the Croatian Team Championship, and I will be here for the next 3 days, probably on Monday or maybe even Sunday. We will have the old setup back. See you soon.